Hi, well, let's do another overview. This time, a quick answer regarding the New Testament, just like I did with the Old Testament. So it's going to be the 30,000 foot view, just kind of skimming over the surface, not covering individual books, but just trying to give you a feel for the culture and the history during this time period. So a little bit of lead in before we get to the time of Jesus. We have Alexander the Great in the 300s. He comes along, spreads Greek culture everywhere. The Jews, as a result, want their Bible, their books being understood by the Greek-speaking world, so they create the Septuagint. So that's the Greek translation of the Hebrew text itself. So that's what's going on. You have the Apocrypha, written in this time period, right before Jesus, never accepted by the Jews as on par with their scriptures, but that's the time period we're talking about. We get the rise of Rome, pretty obvious, we're in the Roman Empire, which actually helped spread the gospel a lot because you have Roman roads, they were really good engineers, and so the gospel spread really quickly as a result of that. We get the four gospels coming along, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Some people say, why four gospels? But each one gives us a slightly different view of Jesus. Matthew from a more Jewish perspective, Luke from a more Gentile perspective, and things like that. So, four gospels. Then we get the book of Luke and Acts is actually one complete book. Luke's often been called just a top-rated historian. Amazing accuracy when he talks in the book of Acts about places he'd been, political terminology for different rulers in these various areas, how to sail ships, where to go in the Mediterranean, things like that. He was just amazing. Paul comes along, and I want you to pay special attention to his second missionary voyage. That's where he gets this vision of the man of Macedonia who says, come on over. Well, that's more than just a piece of geography. Once Paul, you can take a look at a map to see this, but once Paul leaves his area and goes across to Macedon, that's part of Greece. He is now in a whole separate region. He is now in what would be considered Europe, not Asia. In other words, he's moving to the heart of the empire. He's moving to civilization. He's moving toward culture. And so this is going to make a huge impact. It's going to change Christianity from something on the outskirts to something that goes right to the heart of the Roman Empire. We get the letters then, a section of the letters in the New Testament, and then we end in the book of Revelation. And people say, wow, what a wild ride. Well, the Jews understood the book of Revelation much more so than we do today. It was a form of writing. I want you to keep that in mind, a form of writing called apocalyptic writing. And so the way it's carried out and the kinds of figures being described, it would be very common for the Jewish people because they had some apocalyptic writing in the Old Testament, Zechariah and Ezekiel and places like that. So this is not new writing. This is not crazy, dreamlike writing. It's, you know what I compare it to, and I don't want you to get the wrong impression, but I compare it, I used to teach science fiction, and I'm not suggesting it's made up, but it has the same kind of otherworldly quality that makes you a little uncomfortable with this world. We get characters from outside our comfort zone that come in and play a role. The heavens, it's a huge scope. It covers so much territory. It's a universal struggle that's going on. So maybe you can kind of see what I'm talking about when I compare it to science fiction. Well, let me end with this. Looking at the Bible, we got 66 books. I just want you to think about the unity. It's an amazing unity. No other set of books comes close to having so many books written by so many different authors, written on different continents, written in different times, and written with different ideas enclosed there. And yet this whole book functions as one tremendous piece of unified writing. Revelation makes all sorts of references to the Old Testament, for example. And so it's an amazing thing what we have with that book. If you know somebody who might be interested in reading the Bible, but they kind of get bogged down about Leviticus or Numbers, I have something, it's just a 2-page little pamphlet that talks about, I call it the best of the best. And it gives people a quick reading plan. It runs them through just the story that I've been telling. It runs them through the story and puts in parentheses what Bible chapters cover that story. When they're done, they will have read something like 20 or 25% of the Bible. But they will have encountered the best parts of the story, and I'm hoping it'll get them curious enough and eager enough to go back and read the rest of the Bible. then you might enjoy it too.